A lot of people don't know that employment tribunals are public in the UK, which means that you can see how many cases have been brought against a particular employer. You can see what they were about, you can see how far they got, and you can also see cases similar to the situation that you're experiencing at work. So it's a great way to learn not just about an employer, but also to try and assess what would happen if I was to go through at least part of this process. The information's all there, but it's not the easiest to navigate, so let me show you around. You can just search for Employment Tribunal decisions on gov.uk, and you'll see that there are over 100,000 decisions available to browse. Now, what can be really frustrating about this database is that you click on a case and you go and you see something like this that says strikeout, or maybe you go to another one and you see it says judgment, and it's like, well, what does any of that mean? So the first useful thing to know is that as the case moves through the court system, the number of things attached to the case will grow. So for example, you can see here that there was a preliminary hearing, and then there was a judgment with reasons, and then it looks like there was a reconsideration. So this is all basically all of the judicial admin that happened on the case, and there was a lot on this particular case. And unhelpfully, they don't put it in any kind of like sequential order. This should be at the top if it was the first thing that happened. But they don't do that, which is why this can be a little confusing. The gold standard of what you're looking for is one that says this: judgment with reasons or reasons. And I'll show you why. So the judgment is the final decision. Did the person win or lose on the claims that they were making? And you can see in this example, the claim of unfair dismissal is well-founded and succeeds. But this is just a 2-page document. So it's useful to know if you want to know if this particular employer had a judgment against them and for what reason. But if you're trying to learn more about the tribunal process and how decisions get made, it's less useful. Contrast that with this case, which is the judgment with reasons. So as you can see, this is a 19-page document, and it goes through and lists out not only what the judgment is, which is summarized at the top, let's just see, and this one is dismissed. You can see there's multiple claims, and it's going through each one and saying whether or not some have won and some have lost. And then the rest of the document is going to explain why. And this is the absolute gold, because this is literally the judge sitting down and saying, this is what I understood, this is what I heard, this is the evidence that I saw, and this is, in the end, what I decided. They typically lay it out by first outlining what the facts are, then they consider what the legal questions that have to be answered are, and in this section you can see that they're working through all the different questions that they have to answer. The first question in this case was the claimant actually disabled? Then they needed to look at whether or not reasonable adjustments were made. They're looking at not just the circumstances of this case, but case law precedent. They're working through multiple claims and looking at them one by one and saying, okay, for this claim, here are the facts, here's the precedent. And then in each one, you're seeing phrases like this: in my judgment, I have found that this is true, this is false. Sometimes they separate these out and put it into a conclusion section. In this case, they've done it on a claim-by-claim basis and said basically yes, no for each one. And so if we scroll right back up to the top of this document, that means that if you have a situation that is any of these potential claims, discrimination arising from disability, unfair dismissal, discrimination on grounds of a part-time status, then you can then find the section where the judge discusses their understanding of the situation below, and you can learn how they evaluate cases. Now, there's 2 ways to look for a particular type of case in the database. The first way is that you can go to the jurisdiction code drop down here, and you can tick the box. This is helpful, but we don't find that it picks up absolutely everything. So you can also search, and the key thing to know here is that you can use the quotes to group a phrase together, so that this is only going to search for the whole phrase of injury to feeling, not just the words injury to and feeling. So you can use more advanced search techniques like you would use on Google or something like that. And if you don't have the time to go through all that searching, don't worry, we've done some of the homework for you. So if you go to the VALA website and then go to resources and real examples, we have summarized multiple cases. So let's say that you have a racism problem and a potential race discrimination issue at work. So we have actually picked out specific cases, summarized them, and then linked off to them so that you can actually understand at a high level before you have to go, diving into those particular judgments. Once you get the hang of the documents, this is such a powerful tool and invaluable for anyone, really, anyone who's considering a tribunal claim, anyone who's moving through the system, or is doing the research to prepare for a hearing or a final hearing.